What's more reliable? Is it BMW? Is it Mercedes-Benz? Or is it Audi? Now, I want to make it clear if you want pure reliability, if that's your primary concern, you would go for a Toyota, a Honda, a Suzuki, a Mazda, something of that nature. German cars represent something else. They operate in a different market segment. I wanted to make it clear, guys. I love German cars. I love Japanese cars. I want to keep it real with my audience. There's a lot of people who watch these videos who don't really understand the nature of cars, are new to it, and they're trying to get into it and make sense of this world. Reliability for German cars depends very much on the type of car you get. Japanese cars, usually they've utilized very low amounts of engine and transmission option. Take a Camry, for example. In a lot of markets, you could only get a Camry with one, maybe two engines. In Australia, for a long time, you could only get Camrys with 2.5 and the 3.5 V6. That's it. In many other markets, guys, there was just one engine option and one transmission option. Now, compare that to the German competition. If you go to BMW, you're getting three different engines in the same car. If you go to Audi, it's very similar. If you go to Benz, it's very similar. And the transmissions are changing up and they're changing generation to generation. You might be getting a DCT, you might be getting a ZF8, a ZF6. Why do I flag this as a very primary thing? Well, first of all, guys, with German cars, there are good eggs and bad eggs. And often reliability doesn't really depend on the brand, right? It doesn't depend on if you buy a Mercedes, Audi, or BMW. What it depends on is the engine and transmission you've got. So for BMW, you could buy yourself an N54 powered BMW and you could have a really bad time. That engine, especially with age, you're going to have to replace a lot of things on it if the previous owner hasn't. You could get a BMW with a B58 with a ZF8 transmission. That could be almost as reliable as a Camry. And it's the same with Audi. You could get an EA888 Gen 4, Gen 3. That engine would serve you really well right alongside Volkswagen's DSG, which by now is quite reliable and quite dependable, though heavy on magnets, and you could have a great time. Or you can get the same motor, right? But EA888, the same motor, but back a couple of generations, and you're going to have a really bad time. And it's the same with Mercedes-Benz. A lot of German cars, guys, I want to say that the primary factor is knowing your engine, transmission, and then knowing the options. You avoid things like air suspension. Factor number two is the random nature of German cars. There's a lot of people who watch my content and I'm constantly getting this feedback. And one of the things I noticed with my experience and theirs is that German cars have a bit of a random nature to them in the used market. This video is not about new cars because, guys, don't get it twisted. New cars under warranty or just outside warranty, it's all going to be the same. Toyota, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, it doesn't matter, right? You might face a little electrical fault, but you just take it to the dealership. So there's this random nature to German cars that a lot of people don't understand. What that means is that you could get a car that's really low mileage. Speaking to another person, he said that he bought a Mercedes-Benz C200 at a similar scenario where it was a recent car, outside of warranty, of course, driven very low kilometers. As soon as he got it, he had to do a transmission replacement. There's many like this of low mileage, quote unquote, clean examples have been pretty poor bias for people. Cars with good engines, good transmission. Now, there's also cases of high mileage German cars. High mileage German cars paired with engines and transmission options that aren't meant to be that reliable as 65 or S85 BMWs, and it seems to be performing for you. Then you think, how did this happen? So there's that German car random nature. A lot of people underestimate that. They think that with the right research, with the right information, by maybe concealing my content, they can go out and they can make a really good decision. And yes, they can, but then they'll have to deal with luck and randomness. And for some reason, it exists in German cars. I've noticed it to a big degree. I'm not sure if it's the quality assurance process and the manufacturing process, the way they've engineered these cars, but it definitely exists. So those two things are now out of the way. And let's talk about exactly which of these cars are most reliable. Before the 2000s, I would put Mercedes-Benz as the most reliable German car brand. Everyone knew this. If you were growing up near that time, you understood that Mercedes-Benz was making really good, technologically advanced and innovative cars because make no mistake, German cars have always been about innovation. So they were innovating. They were also giving you some really solid, well-built cars. What about BMW? Pre the 2000s, guys, BMW was never that great. They were okay. They weren't terrible. They were okay. I would probably put BMW at number 3, Audi at number 2, noting that Audi had some great motors like a 1.9 TDI. Audi's always had some major issues lurking, and timing chain is a big one. A lot of people believe that the T in the TFSI or TSI stands for the timing chain replacement as a reminder of what you'll have to deal with. Audi, I think, was still a better built product, though. The issue with BMW was, and still is to this day, and I'll get into that issue with BMW is the lack of quality control, and things are just not built as robustly. And I've noticed in my BMW and my friends' BMW, even the new ones, it's definitely that phenomena that occurs. You've got Benz on top, you've got Audi second, BMW third, pre to 2000s. From the 2000s, right, 2000, 2001, down to maybe around 2014, Mercedes-Benz at the start was still the most reliable. Then I think they really started dropping off. Audi still stayed about second. The big difference was BMW 2000 to 2013. There's a huge decline in BMW. They started pushing out some real unreliable motors. N63, S63, N54, either the S54 had brought brand new issues, a BMW N55 PWG, which wasn't a great replacement either. You have the N20, the N26, and these were BMW's bread and butter cars. It's not like they were niche models. Actually, the N20, the N26, N54, it's not as if these were niche BMW models. These were their bread and butter models. BMW still third, but becomes a very distant third. Audi, job to no good, lots of oil consumption, timing chain issues. But you start getting into that at higher mileages with Audi. And the other thing I noticed with Audi, they generally don't go bang. All you people I personally know are rebuilding their BMW motors. The engines like to go out on you. Audi, yes, you have the excessive oil consumption, you've got the smoking. They seem to have been running still. Now comes around 2014, 2015. I like to say this is the B58 era. Now, the B58 is a modular engine by BMW, and it's based really on the B38. So the B58 traces its roots all the way back to around 2013 when the BMW i8 came out. And BMW have been developing it. And the B38 came out. That was a good motor, solid motor, but it had some problems, right? And BMW have revised that engine. And then you've got the diesels, the B57, you've got the B48, B46, all in a modular family, all robust engines. And that's where I think BMW's game really changed. How BMW were doing pretty good with the M55 EWG, right? They were getting back to their roots of not making poor reliability decisions. The N26 seemed to have been a bit of an improvement, but it's really with the B58 era where BMW made massive changes. And because of that, guys, I would put BMW at number one. I would put Audi at a very close, extremely close number two. I think Audi today is one of the most slept on German brands. Audi's making great cars. Audi's V6 turbocharged, Audi's E888, any motor Audi is making these days, or since about 2016 or so, is right up there with BMW. And I think overall, Audi's quality control is much better than BMW. Audi has less issues from what I've seen. Audi's making some really good cars, and Audi's just slept on because the B50 is hyped, but the B58 is also actually hyped because it is a great motor, purely because there's a huge aftermarket support. And I would put Benz at number three. Guys, Mercedes-Benz has really fallen off where their quality control is actually suffering as well. Now, I don't think Mercedes-Benz fell off as heavily as BMW did. I don't think there was ever an era where Mercedes were making as terrible cars as BMW was. But Mercedes-Benz did fall off. They're a third. They're not a very distant third now. I think they're starting to get back to what made them good in terms of quality, but they're not the Mercedes-Benz that we all used to know. I spoke to my mechanic about this, right? And I asked him this question straight out. And to be frank, he is a BMW mechanic. For what it's worth, he said that, in his opinion, across all generations, Mercedes-Benz has been the better built product, but when something goes wrong, the components are very expensive. Audi, second, but when something goes wrong, the labor is very expensive. BMW is still third in all generations, but when something goes wrong, labor is not too bad. It's DIYable, and there's a huge aftermarket support. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in his words as well. I hope that helps. I'll catch you next time.